Well, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I always batted ninth. I was the last person. Those of you that have listened to Arnie's speeches over the last few years know that he's talked about how to talk to other people and have your message heard. And he's talked more about the words you say. And I'm going to talk more today about the way you use your voice in such endeavors and in a number of different types of endeavors to give you the impression that the message that you convey has a lot to do with the way you say it as far as the way your voice gives the example, or gives an example. So for example, let's take a phrase that might occur between a husband and a wife. Let's say the husband has come home late from somewhere and the wife is waiting for him, and the question is where have you been? Now, if the question simply is stated in that form, where have you been? Well, that's innocuous enough. Well, yeah, I had to stay late because my boss made me work a little longer, whatever. That doesn't sound too bad. It was a general inquisitive statement. But if the statement were like this, where have you been? Then that's a bit of a tone of exasperation, and it might put the person receiving that question a little bit on the defensive as to where he had been. Or perhaps it was phrased, where have you been? Now, that's probably not quite as bad, because maybe the spouse expected, the wife expected the husband was going to be gone, but wasn't quite sure where he'd been. So, where have you been? This is an innocuous enough question, and just to gather some information. But what if he said, where have you been? Inquisition. It's all over. At that point, if you really want to say it, you can say, where have you been? And blah, 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 blah. It's a really good answer on that one. So that's just an introduction, really, of the importance of voice in conveying your message. Let's look at an entirely different example. Politicians. We have an interesting race for president going on the Republican side right now. So let's take an imaginary candidate and see how they might use their voice in different situations. And we're going to take a situation where the candidate is in a coffee shop talking one-on-one, or is at a talk show talking to the talk show host, or is it a rally for the particular campaign. So let's take this imaginary candidate. We'll call him Rick Romney. Okay? So Rick Romney is in a coffee shop, and he's going to go talk to Art. And so, hi, Art. I'm Rick Romney. I'm running for president of the United States. And you know, I have a lot of ideas, and I want you to vote for me. And Art says, yeah, sure, I'll vote for you. Then he goes and votes for somebody else. But what have I conveyed here? You know, if I'm Art, I don't know where Rick Romney stands on anything, or why we should elect him president. And maybe the talk show is a better example for that. So if Rick Romney goes on a talk show, and let's say we have Rush Hannity on this talk show. And Rush asks him about, Rick, what's your proposal? Why do you want to run for president? And Rick says, you know, the nation really is having a lot of problems right now. And people have lost their freedoms. They don't have the right to build their own life. They're constantly restricted by the government. And basically, we need a change in our government. And I'm the person to provide that change. An entirely different message than what he told Art. Okay? But you know, if you're listening to a talk show, and I've been away this week and I've listened to a lot of talk shows, you know, you get a lot of information from the talk show. But if you're at a convention, perhaps, or not a convention, but a campaign rally, perhaps Rick Romney is getting them to say, this nation has been down the tubes. We need a change at the top. We need someone who will restrict or return the rights of the people, because you have lost all of your freedoms, and it is time to do something else. The current president is not doing the job. He must go. You wouldn't do that on a talk show, would you? You'd probably laugh you off the talk show. He wouldn't be back. So it depends on the situation, how the voice is used to convey a message. How about us as Toastmasters? How do we convey a message? Let's take a simple thing. Let's suppose we wanted to invite a friend to a Toastmasters meeting. And let's just say, as an example, that Fred and Beverly were talking one day, and Beverly said, hey Fred, I hear you're in Toastmasters. And Fred says, yeah, it's a pretty good organization. I go, you know, give my speeches. You think Beverly would come to a meeting? I don't think so. She wouldn't be here today. It wasn't really very convincing. But suppose Fred instead was asked the question, Beverly said, well, you go to Toastmasters, don't you? How do you like it? Fred said, oh yeah, it's a pretty good organization. You know, I give speeches, and they even made me president for a while. That was a lot of work, but you know, I guess you know, I'm better off. That was a little stronger, but would Beverly come to a meeting as a guest from that? I wouldn't. Well, suppose Fred had said instead, oh yeah, Beverly, Toastmasters, great organization, communication and leadership skills. I couldn't even talk in front of a group before I got in this club. And not only that, I learned leadership in this club, and they made me president, and now I feel that I can tackle the world. That's why I'm in this other organization, Beverly, that I know you from, because I had Toastmasters. Now, Beverly's more likely to come to a meeting, but Fred's going to say, so Beverly, can you come to the meeting this Friday? And Beverly may say, well, no, I have other plans. So there's another way to do that. If you learn this in sales, and Fred could say, Beverly, will you come? Would you rather come this Friday to a meeting or next Friday? So it's the way you use your voice, the tone of your voice, the projection of your voice, and how enthusiastic and excited you sound about the message you're trying to convey that is important. So if you want to get your message across, be sure you use your voice effectively, Mr. Toastmaster.